Great day, great day. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Welcome, welcome. As you are joining us this evening, please like and share and tag someone. Invite someone to join you into this engagement, conversation, experience, if you will. And also feel free to put in the chat and let us know where you are arriving from, where you are joining from. Are you wherever you are in the world? Just let us know in the chat where you're tuning in. And then also let us know in the chat how you are arriving this evening. Are you excited? Are you curious? I always love to hear where our mindset is as we start this focused engagement. And tonight is an interesting topic that I want to tackle. And so I'm glad that you all are tuning in here. So again, like, share, tag someone, bring them in as well. And again, in the spirit of timeliness and just being on time, as you know me, I will go ahead and get us started right now. Okay. So thank you. You all should be able to see our topic for today, and I want to welcome you all. Thank you for joining in on another episode and webinar of Mindset Matters. Yes, our weekly Monday night webinars where we challenge the belief that shapes our lives and develop the mindset that we need to become, yes, the highest expression of ourselves that we can be. And so tonight's topic is one that is often misunderstood. It is the mindset of understanding feelings versus emotions, okay? And we're going to talk about why knowing the difference can actually transform your self-awareness around it, okay? And so I want to really kind of, interestingly take the deep dive into this. In my daily regimen, if you will, I do a lot of research and I love psychology. So, and I like learning from experts. So listening to a podcast and reading and really got intrigued about, hey, what is this difference? And the really, really good awareness that came from just understanding the difference said, hey, you know what? This would be an amazing topic that I would love to share with my listening audience in our Mindset Matters webinar. So I thought I'd go down this path and give you some insight and break this down and put this together so that we really truly walk away from here, this particular experience, truly understanding the difference and how to manage both. Okay. Many people use the words feelings and emotions oftentimes as if they mean the same thing. But I'm here to tell you tonight, they actually don't. Okay. And understanding the difference can drastically improve your emotional intelligence, your relationships, your leadership, and your ability to make better decisions. And I will add to that, better decisions in the moment. Okay. And here's a powerful thought that I want you to consider. You cannot effectively manage what you cannot accurately identify. Okay, let me say that again. You cannot effectively manage what you cannot accurately identify. Okay, so if you don't know what's happening inside of you, your emotions will begin managing you instead of you managing them. Okay, that's just the introduction to where we're going. So tonight, yes, we're going to learn how to recognize the difference and how this awareness gives us more choice, more peace, and more influence. Okay. So I want you to let's go down the understanding of both of them in this segment. So I want to start this first segment with just talking about what are emotions. We all hear it, we all know it, so we say, but I'm going to really take a deeper understanding so that I really separate the two because they're not the same. And so when we hear the word emotions and what are emotions? Emotions are automatic. Okay. That's the first distinction I want you to make with the two. Emotions are automatic, they actually happen before we think. Okay. That is your brain's immediate response to something happening around you or inside you. Okay. So think of emotions as your body's alarm system. Something happened, someone criticized you, you almost got in a car accident, you get some exciting news, the body reacts before the mind explains it. Okay. So everybody got that. So emotions, automatic. Physiologically, boom, we respond. Okay. And that's a good thing in some cases because remember, the brain needs to prepare for fight or flight. Do we need to get to safety really quick? It wants to protect you really quick. So emotions in that case can be beneficial. Okay. Now, researchers generally identify several core emotions, okay? And some of those core emotions are joy, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, and surprise. And believe it or not, folks, these emotions are universal. Every human being experiences them regardless of culture, okay? Now, how they outwardly express it might be different, but everyone experiences it regardless of who you are. Okay. Emotions are just that. Your brain creates emotions to help protect you and prepare you to act. Emotions itself is not good or bad. Okay. The emotion itself is not good or bad. It is simply information. Okay. Simply information. So to just bring in the chat to this discussion, I want to ask you all, what emotion have you experienced today before you even realized it? Okay. Because remember, it's automatic, it's an automatic response. And so think about today. What emotion did you experience today? And before you knew it, you experienced it. Okay. And so, and an example that I would give you is that I got an email, and in that email, it was a client saying that they have accepted my proposal. So immediately I felt joy. Okay. Before I could even say anything, my heart, my mind, I was going to say the feeling, but okay. My heart and mind, the emotion, let me back that up, was joy. Okay. The emotion was joy. Okay. And that was before I could say anything. Okay. So thank you for just sharing in the chat. Just share. Hey, what was it that you experienced today? And again, folks, this is not exposure. This is awareness. So just paying attention to throughout the day and evening. Hey, what am I noticing in terms of an emotion that I experience that's automatic, oftentimes before I say anything? Okay. Key word there, before I say anything, because you have that emotion that resonates and cause your attention to feel some type of way. We'll say that. And that emotion itself is joy. We'll give it, for me, it was joy. Okay. So let's continue on because I want you to understand now what are feelings. Okay, feelings. And I want to look into feelings. So feelings come after emotions. Okay, so emotions come first, then the feelings. Okay, feelings are the meaning that you actually assign to the emotion. Okay, so when I got the positive news that was a signed contract, the feeling is what I assigned to the emotion, and that feeling was excitement. It was they accepted it. They're moving forward, and it was positive, if you will. It was a positive feeling that I assigned to the emotion. Okay, so key word here is feelings come after emotions, and emotions are the meaning. I'm sorry, feelings are the meaning that we give our emotions, that you give your emotions. Okay, everybody got that? An emotion lasts only a short time. Okay, emotions last for a short time, but the feeling can last for minutes, hours, days, folks, and even years, because it is influenced by your thoughts, your beliefs, your memories, and your interpretations. Okay, so totally different space that you're in with feelings. Okay, and oftentimes feelings are attached to a tape we keep playing. Okay, through experience, through how we see ourselves, through whatever that looks like. But we have that emotion, then we have this feeling, and if you're hearing and going with me here, you're seeing this word interpretation. Okay, so as an example, someone doesn't return your text. Emotion might say fear. Feeling might say I must not matter. Okay, notice that fear, which is physiological, but the emotion puts a meaning to it. I must not matter. Okay, or emotion, a surprise, and feeling, they're probably busy. Okay, so notice that in both scenarios, the situation is still the same, but the feeling, meaning the meaning attached that helps to define, is different. Okay, okay, so there's a difference here. Different feelings can have different meanings. Okay, your beliefs shape your feelings, folks. Okay, this is why mindset matters. Two people can actually experience exactly the same event and walk away feeling completely different because they assigned a different meaning to the experience. Okay, I want you to get real clear on that. Okay, so feelings are what we assign to it. So sometimes, folks, we might have to take a step back and examine the feeling and unpack that thing, because it may very well be based on how we perceive, we respond. And someone can have the exact same experience and feel totally different. So, what that tells me is just because I'm in a situation with multiple people, or even a relationship situation, a business situation, and we're both in this experience together, we could very well come out of the experience feeling completely different. Not good or bad, but just understanding that there may very well be two perspectives that come out of that experience. Okay? Because your beliefs, folks, become the filter through which your emotions, feelings, okay? That filter, your beliefs, is that filter which emotions become feelings. Okay, so you feel and then you assign that, and that comes from our beliefs. Okay, so again, we can walk away with totally two different things based on how the beliefs that we run that through interprets. Okay, so here's another question that I would throw out in the chat. How often are your feelings shaped more by your interpretation than by the actual event? Okay. How often have we then said how we felt based on our interpretation, and someone in that same situation may have gotten a different interpretation of it? Okay. And you might find yourself projecting based on your interpretation on someone else. And that, folks, is not fair judgment. Okay. It's not a fair assessment, because always keep in mind that your interpretation is always going to be coming through your lens. Okay. It's always going to be coming through your lens. I can't argue your lens. I can't dispute your lens. And even from a coaching and counseling perspective, when we are asking questions and leaning in, I want to understand the interpretation, but more importantly, the beliefs behind the feeling that has been attached to a situation. Okay. And oftentimes, it may not even be the situation, but the feeling, or I should back up and say the emotion that the event created was an emotion similar to something we've experienced before. So, what we do is, from a feeling standpoint, we oftentimes will assign the same experience and interpretation to it, so that it oftentimes causes, in some cases, impaired thinking. Okay? Impaired thinking, because we're thinking based on an experience that isn't this current experience, but the emotion feels the same. Okay? The emotion feels the same. Okay? And so, yes, folks, you have to unpack. When you're using that word feeling, I feel, I'm feeling, ask yourself and unpack that, because there was an emotion that came before that feeling. There was an emotion, and that emotion made you feel some kind of way. That feeling came from some perspective, some belief, some experience, some interpretation. Okay? Good, bad, or indifferent, it was that. Sometimes we got to take a step back and unpack. Okay? Which we do well as coaches and counselors. Okay? So consider this next segment, why this matters to us from a mindset standpoint. I want to talk through why this actually matters from a mindset standpoint, because many people spend their lives, folks, trying to eliminate emotions. Okay? That's impossible. You cannot eliminate emotions. We try to be emotionless. Sometimes we try to be stoic. We don't want to show it. But the reality is, emotions and feelings are here. You cannot erase them. Okay? The goal isn't to eliminate emotions. The goal is to become emotionally aware. Okay? And that's what I want you to think about. Become emotionally aware. And here's a sample process. Okay. We have an event. Think about it. Event, emotion. Okay. Event could be a situation, whatever, which brings about the emotion. And in between the emotion and the feeling, folks, is thought. Okay. Thought is where I need you to catch it, because after the thoughts comes the feeling. After the feeling comes the behavior. And after the behavior comes the outcome. And most people skip directly from emotion to behavior. Okay. Emotion becomes reaction. Reaction becomes regret. And emotionally intelligent people pause at the thought. Okay. And they ask themselves, what emotion am I experiencing? Okay. What emotion am I experiencing? And we go on to say, what emotion am I telling myself? What story am I now running? What tape am I playing? And is that tape or story or narrative or even interpretation actually true right now, meaning in front of me? I have evidence of it. Okay. That pause creates something. Okay. That pause creates something very, very powerful. Okay. Because it allows you to rationalize now with your inner coach, and you pull away from that inner critic trying to go from 0 to 100. Okay. And where there is choice, folks, there is also going to be freedom. Okay. Where there is choice, you're going to also have freedom. And you never want to be told, or you never want to sit in reflection and wonder why. Why is it I go from 0 to 100? Why is there such minimal space in between so that I can rationalize before I act? Well, that's your work. That's work that you might have to do. Or why, when I feel this emotion, do I shift instantly to this behavior? Why not pause? Why not process? Why not ask myself some questions and make that totally different so I can self-manage differently? Because believe it or not, folks, the outcome as it results from emotions doesn't have to always be a negative outcome. The outcome, as we process it and as we start to feel, we get that emotion and we start to feel, that processing in between can be a totally different outcome if you want it to be. Okay? If you want it to be. Key word, because remember, the freedom is yours. But if you just want to have the emotion and go straight to the behavior and not process that in between, then that's just you wanting to do whatever you do. Okay. But if you want better awareness about what that looks like, where you take a step back and you pause and say, okay, let me process this differently because I'd like to be in control much more of this situation versus having me interpret it differently, go down a rabbit hole, oftentimes making ourselves the low hanging fruit and ultimately feeling bad and ultimately having some behavioral outcome that is not positive. Okay. So we've got to be willing to really take that step and say, okay, this emotion is, and sometimes that emotion, folks, is automatic and it does happen very quickly. But there is that ability to pause before we respond, as long as we remember and ask ourselves, what is this? What is this? What am I feeling right now? And what narrative am I telling myself right now about me? Okay. About me. And the best example I can give you is that even to this day, as a survivor of bullying as a youngster, to this day, if I'm in a conversation, I'm in a situation, I'm in an event or argument or whatever that looks like, and the feeling of the emotion of fear, that emotion of fear in a situation for me historically would go right to the behavioral outcome that I am under attack. And that behavioral outcome for me has not been good historically. I'm just being transparent with you. Okay. And so now, as I've gotten older, that emotion when I'm experiencing bullying, even as an adult professional in conversation, relationship, whatever that looks like, I oftentimes now will try and pause, not play the tape from 10 years old, 12 years old, 16 years old, but rather ask the question, am I safe? And if I'm safe, I can take that emotion, pause it. I still feel some type of way, but the feeling is no longer fear or a threat. Okay. And I'm able to manage that through this situation so that the behavior outcome is more beneficial to me than not. And yes, I'll tell you, it's a process for me. It has been a process for me. There have been some times when the behavioral outcome for me was not a good day. And again, that's just me being transparent. It's a process, but I'm recognizing that there's these two things. There's that emotion that comes, and then there's that feeling. And that feeling is the tape I'm playing. And if I can disrupt that in between those emotions and my assignment of what this looks like, then this can have the outcome I have with the freedom that I get as the power of choice. Okay? So I want you to think about the leadership application of this, because great leaders don't ignore emotions. They recognize them. Okay. They name them. They understand them. They choose their responses. Okay. That's emotional maturity, folks. That's emotional maturity. I want you to think about that. And so again, to kind of help you believe and get this, I'm going to use this word believe as an acrostic again and just go through each letter that we're just going to apply in here to show you how we get this done. Okay? Because it aligns with my belief model. That B again is behavior. Our behavior often comes from feelings, not facts. Okay? Our behavior oftentimes comes from feelings, not facts. And that's the B. Emotion. Emotions provide valuable data. They are signals, not dictators. Okay? So just because you have the emotion doesn't mean you must do something. Okay? You can process emotion and keep it moving. Okay? The L is the language. The words we use determine how long feelings stay alive. So whatever's playing in the tape and whatever the tape comes and plays every time tells you how long that's going to keep circling the wagon or get logged in, where the inner critic in your mindset can keep pulling it up, pulling it up, pulling it up, and playing the same tape again so that the feelings stay raw, the feelings stay fresh, the feelings support the narrative. Okay? So instead of saying, I'm angry, try saying, I'm experiencing anger. Okay? Don't give it power. Talk about what it is. Okay. I am angry is talking about you. Talk about the experience. Your language, folks, helps to shift the mindset. That reframing goes a long way with self awareness. And I am angry triggers more emotion and feeling. I am experiencing anger shows your power of control in that situation. Okay. It sounds different, it lands different in that mental psychic. And it gives you that ability to pause. Okay. Gives you that ability to pause. Okay. That small shifts remind you that emotions are just temporary. Okay. They are experiences, folks, not identities. Okay. Let me say that again. They're just experiences, not identity. Okay. But the I stands for identity. Okay. The I stands for identity. And identity is emotions are not who you are. Okay. Emotions are not who you are. Feelings are not your identity. Okay. You are the observer. You have emotions. You are not your emotions. Never forget that. Okay. You are not your emotions. The E is energy, folks. Unprocessed emotions amounts to energy. Processed emotion creates clarity. Okay. Processed emotion creates clarity. Remember that. Okay. So we got the B, behavior, E, emotions, L, the language that we are saying to ourselves, the I, identity, the E is our energy. And now we're on the V, which is our vision. Yes, folks, our vision. Emotions should inform your vision. It should never define your future. Okay? It should educate you. Okay? It should inform you. Just like it's information. That's it. For you to process, not instantly respond. Okay? Then the E, the last E is expectations. And healthy expectations, folks, reduces unnecessary emotional suffering. I want you to hear that. Expectations help us to reduce unnecessary emotional suffering. Rigid expectations often increase disappointment. Okay? So, again, folks, two different things: that automatic, immediate body response, and that feelings are interpreted, they're influenced, they're our thoughts, they're our beliefs. Okay? So, now I want to move on to this segment, and I give you 4 questions to ask yourself. Okay? The next time you feel emotionally overwhelmed, I want you to pause and I want you to ask yourself these 4 questions. Okay. And these 4 questions, folks, will be that thought in between before we go to feelings and assignment, before we go right to pulling from that inner critic, because that's what most of us are going to do. Okay. This is an intentional awareness exercise. While it's just emotion, what emotion am I actually experiencing? Is the first question. What emotion am I actually feeling? Experiencing. I'm sorry. Not feeling, because I don't want you to get there yet. But ask yourself, what emotion am I actually experiencing? because this is the opportunity to see it. And even in my coaching, I have an actual cheat sheet, and the cheat sheet has all the emotions that are written out, all kinds of emotions that you can look on there and point them out. And when I do that, I allow the clients to really see what it is. What am I experiencing? Point to it. If you can't say it, point to it. Because no, I don't want you to talk about how you feel. I want you to tell me what you are experiencing. Okay? Because I got you thinking now, not behaving. Question 2 is, what story am I telling myself about this situation? This is where we pull from feelings and the narrative and the tape that you've attached to this situation, this experience. So, what story am I telling myself about this situation? Okay. Again, I'm asking the question because you need to become aware of what this looks like in the moment. Okay. Question 3. Is there evidence that supports the story today? Okay. Evidence that supports the story today. Okay. And then not what you think, not what you heard. Evidence means something black and white, concrete. And if there's clarity that you don't want, then that's not evidence. Okay? So evidence that supports this story. If you don't want evidence, then that means you want to go down the rabbit hole instead of getting clarity. Okay? So there needs to be evidence that supports the story. Question 4. What response aligns with the person that I want to become? That's a big one, folks. What person, what response? Okay? What next step? What response really aligns with the person I want to become? And if I'm trying to become my highest and best self, then responding just because I'm playing this tape that really isn't serving me, why not respond in a way that I want to be better? I want to become better. I want to feel better about this situation. So I don't need to make myself the low-hanging fruit. I don't need to make the experience bad. I can make the experience, again, freedom and choice, folks, just an experience, and I can keep it moving and self-manage in a way that makes the resolve much better than potentially going from 0 to 100. Okay? And if you notice the questions, folks, notice the focus. Okay? Not who you have been. Notice the focus is on who you're becoming. Okay? It's not on who you've been, what you've experienced in the past, because that's just the feelings playing that tape from the inner critic. Okay? And so here's the Mindset Matters challenge that I want to give you all for the week. Before reacting to any emotionally charged situation, I literally want you to pause. I actually want you to name the emotion, identify the feeling, challenge the story or the tape or even the interpretation, and choose your response intentionally. Okay? And I say intentionally because it's choice and it's freedom. Okay? It doesn't need to be an automatic 0 to 100. It doesn't need to be emotions, feelings, or emotions behavior. Okay? It can be a thought process, a reflection, an examination, and it can be totally different in terms of an outcome because I'm trying to lean into who I'm becoming, not who I was in the past. And this is about growth and development, folks. Okay. And as I stated earlier, this is why knowing the difference can transform our self awareness. And that self regulation embodies self regulation. That self awareness embodies that self regulation. Okay. And I want to choose my response intentionally. And I'm speaking to me first. And remember this, that emotions happen to you. Okay. Emotions happen to you. Feelings are influenced by the meaning you assign. Okay. Your mindset determines whether those feelings become growth or limitation. Every day you have an opportunity to become more emotionally intelligent. Every day you have an opportunity to respond rather than to react to a situation. And every time you choose awareness, folks, over impulse, you strengthen that mindset. Okay. And again, this is speaking to me heavily, folks. Okay. So that I pause, so that I don't impulsively respond. So think about it. Everybody that's listening, how many times in the last week, in the last day, have you just impulsively responded? Have you just said something simply without thinking about it? Okay. Leading with emotion. Okay. If you want to strengthen that mindset and certainly become more emotionally intelligent, this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to manage and choose intentionally. Okay. I will leave you with this question. And this question is, what if the greatest breakthrough in your life isn't changing your circumstance, but rather changing how you interpret your emotions? What if the greatest breakthrough isn't changing your circumstance, but rather just simply changing how you interpret your emotions? Think about that for a moment. Perhaps the freedom you've been searching for begins with understanding what you're truly feeling and why. Just think about that for a moment. The freedom that you've been searching for begins with understanding what you're truly feeling and why. Okay? So thank you all again for tuning in, joining in to this episode and this webinar of Mindset Matters as we took the deep dive into feelings versus emotions. And I'm encouraging each and every one of you to like, share, even pass this on to somebody who may have missed it. Tell them to take a look at it because it is really helpful. And if it was helpful to you, please share in the comments. I would love to hear that and really, really know that I am, anytime you hear these and see these, I've lived it. I totally breathe it and it resonates with me first. And so I put it out there in hopes that it might resonate or support you in your journey to, again, your highest and best self. And again, if you find that you challenged with those emotions and feelings, again, as always, I'm always here as an accountability partner for you in the chat, or I should say the link in the platform from which you are joining from. And yes, we're tuning in from Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So thank you all for joining from each and every one of those platforms. You can click on the link in the bio and consider a discovery call. Let's go deeper. Let's really unpack this for you so that you can be equipped with the best tools that you need to be your highest and best self. And the simple way too is to just click on the QR code in the upper left-hand corner of the screen again to support the effort of being able to live your highest and best self because, folks, yes, your mindset is always going to matter. Until next week, having a great, amazing rest of your evening and an even more amazing week. Take care.